Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. You know, you go to your favorite Chinese restaurant, and what's the first thing everybody eats when you get the appetizer? It's the Chinese barbecue pork. They gobble it up. Problem is, it's expensive. Well, today we're gonna make it here on Buzz Cooks. Char Siu. I probably said that wrong, but it's my best attempt. Anyways, we're doing it next, so stick around. All right, let's get started. Now, some of these ingredients you're going to have, some we're going to substitute because they're hard to find. So it may not be as authentic, but the flavor is there. You're going to need a half a cup of soy sauce, 1/3 cup of honey. Get that into our saucepan. We're going to go with a 1/3 cup of ketchup. And we're going to go with a 1/3 cup of brown sugar. And instead of Chinese rice wine, I went with sherry, a 1/4 cup, and 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. And if you can't find 5-spice Chinese, use allspice, and that's 1 teaspoon. We're going to put this on a low flame, and we're going to mix it up real good. Make sure everything blends together nice and smooth, and then we'll turn the flame off, let it sit while we clean up our pork tenderloin. Now, traditional is a pork butt or pork shoulder, but for me it's just way too much fat, so I'm going with pork tenderloin, which is super tender, and I don't think you need all that fat, to be honest with you. So we're going to clean up our tenderloin, get all the silver skin off, get all the excess fat off. And while I'm doing this, if I could remind you to please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends and family all about us, leave a comment if you can, and remember to hit that bell to stay up to date on newest recipes. I hope you guys are enjoying these as much as I am making them. This dish was actually so tasty, it was spot on, to be honest with you. So we're going to get these pork tenderloins cleaned up. Now we're going to put them into a Ziploc bag once they're all cleaned up. And we'll put the marinade into the bag. And you're going to want to marinate this 24 to 48 hours. The longer the better. And the one thing I should have done, which I didn't do, is before I put the tenderloins in the bag, is I should have taken a fork and punctured a bunch of holes into the meat to help it absorb in there. Next time, that's what I'm going to do. But since I told you, you can do it on the first time. So we'll get all the air out of the bag, and we're going to pop that in the refrigerator. So 24 hours later, we're going to get our sous vide out and get this ready to sous vide for the next 3 hours. We're going to take the pork out of the Ziploc bag and put it into a seal-a-meal bag and seal it up nice and tight. Get the air out of there. Now, if you don't have a sous vide, you can cook this low and slow in your oven at 160 for 3 hours. But I prefer the sous vide. It just makes this even more tender, melt in your mouth kind of meat. So we're going to set our sous vide to 160 degrees. And set the meat in there. And we're just going to let it cook in that water bath for 3 hours. 3 hours later, we'll remove it. And we're going to take this pork, we're going to put it on a baking sheet with the rack and let it rest for a few minutes, because now we're going to take the marinade that we reserved, put it into our saucepan, and we're going to bring this to a boil and let that boil for 5 minutes. Now this is very important. If you use the marinade that the pork was in, you must boil it for 5 minutes so that it's safe. Otherwise, when you make the marinade, just reserve a quarter cup or so of it for the glaze. So we're going to let this boil and boil and boil so it'll be safe for us to use. And that will be our glaze. So once that calms down, we'll transport it into a glass dish, let it cool. I've got my oven at 400 degrees. And we're going to serve a little rice on the side with this dish. So I got my rice cooker out. We're going to do 1 cup of rice to 1.5 cups of water and let that get started. All right, now we got our glazes cooled off. So we're going to paint both sides of the pork with our marinade glaze. Make sure you get it coated really good on both sides, front and back. All right. Okay, once we get it fully coated, we're going to pop it in the oven for about 15 minutes at 400 and let that glaze get nice and sticky and gooey, just like the restaurant. Make sure you keep an eye on it because you don't want it to burn. And that's what you're looking for right there. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of turmeric to our rice. I like to have a little color there, so the turmeric will give it a nice yellow color. And it's actually good for you, turmeric. It's supposed to be good for inflammation and other things. But it really doesn't change the flavor of the rice at all. I just did it for looks. Now let's cut up that pork, and it's just like a knife through butter. It's so tender. Look at that. Came out absolutely perfect. Now we're just going to plate it up. We'll put our rice on the plate. We'll put our pork on the plate. And then we're going to drizzle some extra sauce over that pork. And you have delicious Chinese restaurant barbecue pork at home for half the price. And it is so tender and so delicious. You're going to enjoy it. All right, thanks for watching.